AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Welcome to the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or are in the process of overcoming a life topic. Our hope is that we give you inspiration that you can overcome anything that you are going through and that you too can live a life of significance. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture, along with my wife and business partner, Marty, who is sponsoring this podcast series. We have with us today Patti Schleeter, who is a peer support specialist working with the Calvert County Behavioral Health Department. You'll learn from Patti just what it was that got her involved in drug addiction, the aspect of her self-image, self-esteem, some very important aspects of her life that were aspects that caused her to become addicted to drugs and become a person who succumbed to the disease of drug addiction. You'll learn from Patti what some of the identifying characteristics are, some of the long-term effects of drugs, and she, with her children, you learn some of the effects that a drug can have on a person's life. For some, it's a way of overcoming any life obstacles at the moment, but Patti will tell you that there are long-term consequences of drug addiction. Let's learn together what Patti has learned, what she's experiencing, and she is passing forward her experience to those who are recovering from the addiction of drug abuse. Our hope in this series is that we can reach those who might have the propensity to engage in drugs. We want to hope that we can help you make the right decision to avoid drugs and overcome whatever it is that could be in the effect of low self-esteem, low confidence, anything of that nature that leads you to think that I just need a circle of friends to help me, and sometimes that results in turning to drugs as a source of help. Let's learn from Patti just what her life experience is, and let's learn together what can help us to overcome anything in life that may be holding us back. Welcome to our Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome various life topics. We are Ron and Marty Cooper of the Cooper Culture. Marty is my wife and business partner. We have with us today Patti Schleeter, who is a peer support specialist. She too is recovering from substance abuse, and we learned from Patti through this series just how she got started. One of the things that we learned from Patti is there is no single attribute, no single identifying characteristic of the person who has the propensity to engage in drugs. Rather, what we learn also from Patti is that be willing to take the time to identify with and work with that person. Marty, what are some takes that you had?
The one take was that there were people that built a relationship with Patti to help her through this process and overcome the drugs.
And the relationship we learned from Patti is very important. So let's listen to Patti and just learn from her story what she's doing to pass her learning experiences forward, and what we too can do to learn from Patti and pass forward what we're learning. Hi, Patti. welcome to this podcast. And I have a feeling that the listeners are going to learn a lot from your experience, Patty.
Well, thank
And
you.
I want to start off by thanking you. Marty and I together want to thank you for the work you're doing for the substance abusers who are in the process of recovery, but you're helping them based on your experience.
Yeah, that's correct. And thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and share what I've learned. So this is not for nothing, you know?
Patty, can you give us and our listeners just a brief background of what you do, who you are, where you've been?
Such loaded questions. So many things. So my name is Patricia, but I go by Patti. Patricia, if you're mad at me. So I work for Calvert County Behavioral Health. I'm what's called a peer support specialist. That is kind of, as it sounds, not a new concept, where people with shared lived experience, shared language can assist other people in their, going through going through the motions of life, going through something. And my specific background is substance abuse. I'm a recovering heroin addict. I've had about a little over 5 years in recovery, and mental health disorders as well, as far as eating disorders, depression, anxiety, that load of stuff.
Patty, there's several things that come to mind. Shared experience. It sounds as if you are, quote, paying it forward based on your previous experience.
Yes, absolutely. I do not believe that I would have made it as far as I have come without the assistance of others. And sometimes it's just the smallest, most minute little thing, like somebody recognizes you and sees through the addiction and sees a person. And those little interactions with people can build and make recovery possible. So.
I hope the listeners caught that exactly. That is so important, Patty, with the help of others. Mm-hmm. In other words, my guess is the help of others are on the positive side.
Yes.
That's not the negative side that, hey, take drugs and so forth.
Right.
Patty, can you take us back, we do not want to focus on the past, but can you take us back just a little bit mentally, that what got you started? If you can think back that far, think into it to that point, what was it that maybe were some of the things that got you started? And the purpose of asking this question is, if we were to determine some factors that may be appropriate for anyone else who's not yet abusing substance, but yet to think that they may have the propensity based on your experience. Can you address that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to preface that too by saying that there's a study, it's called ACEs, and it's Adverse Childhood, now I'm going to forget, experiences scale. Okay. So ACEs. And that has a list of criteria that, one of which is children exposed to homelessness, substance abuse, born into substance abuse, severe trauma in some form. So people that score high on that ACEs scale oftentimes will find themselves predisposed for substance abuse and mental health. That being said, my life was pretty normal, average. I'm a military brat, Navy brat. We bounced around a little bit. But I can remember very early on not ever feeling comfortable, like I ever fit in any place in particular. Some of that could have been due to the moving around, because you always had to kind of keep a mask and adjust as you went. And I just know that anxiety and the depression was really building. So looking back in hindsight, I see a clear progression with the mental health disorders, the anxiety and the depression, which led into, for me, an eating disorder. So about 15 years old, 14, 15, I was hospitalized for my eating disorder. I had started messing around with marijuana and alcohol at that time, and it helped me feel numb. It was just a way for me to not feel like gross in my own body. I don't know how else to say it, but I just didn't like who I was. And I didn't want to have to sit in that body, so I took myself out by using. Just kept progressing. I kept meeting people that were older, more experienced in the substance use, if you will, and they had harder and harder drugs that I was exposed to. Mm-hmm. And I kept using, and I found my niche with opiates. I love opiates. They take me down and out. And I was introduced to heroin when I was 17, turning 18. Still in high school. I was dating an older guy, and he was using, and that's where I was introduced. And then this is not to blame him by any means. This is just he's got his own issues, I have my own issues. That was just, we met, and that trajectory took on its own path.
Patty, I'm intrigued by several things you're saying, but let me, for the benefit of the listeners, is the ACEs assessment available online, or how would a person have access to that?
Absolutely. It's available online. There's multiple studies done on ACEs, the ACEs scale. Now, for laymen to look at it, you can kind of get an idea that, these are the traumas listed. If you experience more traumas, you're more likely to. But that would obviously, you want to seek a professional to be able to really dive deeper into what that means and how that affects.
Good. Now, take that to mean that the ACEs assessment is a valid early potential indicator.
Mm-hmm, yep, absolutely. A screening tool, yep.
Now, you also mentioned, Patty, what some of us may interpret as a genetic predisposition in your personal life. Do you feel, or maybe do you know medically, that you were genetically predisposed to your substance abuse?
So that's always the big question, right? Nature versus nurture. I come from a long history of substance abuse and mental health disorders in my family on both sides. And that made me predisposed for sure. So I had it in there that I would more likely fall into like obsessive or compulsive behaviors, which these are, substance abuse is a compulsive behavior. And this is, I was raised well. It wasn't that my parents were like, go use drugs. They were adamant about using it, but maybe lines of communication weren't open as well as they could have been. My parents were a late in life kid. They were kind of growing and doing their thing, and they were in the middle of a divorce. There's lots of stuff going on externally. So maybe those avenues for communication weren't open, and I didn't know how to express myself. I didn't even really know that there was something wrong, so much as it's just, there was something like, I just don't feel good. I just don't like the way I feel, and it didn't feel wrong to change it at the time.
Patty, let me ask you, and here's maybe the focus of this podcast, but now that you have reflected on the way things were, that were contributors, if that's a correct term, to your substance abuse, is there a lesson learned from your experience that you can pass on to us that, hey, if you see these things happening in a person's life, that pay attention to that we're not judging, we're not labeling.
Right.
We just see that maybe if this is this, whatever it is, and what I'm sensing a little bit of relationships, I want to know where I fit. If we can just use that as maybe a leading indicator, are those some factors that would be useful to those of us on the outside, so to speak?
Looking in? Yeah, absolutely. And for parents, we obviously intimately know our children. We never want to see the worst. Now I'm a parent myself, so you never want to think that that's happening. But the classic indicators for teenagers, they're not, if they were active in sports or with a certain group of friends and they start sliding to a different group of people, and that activity level starts dropping, they're not home, isolated, not willing, like short, like you'll see, you'll see a personality change. I know I became very angry and withdrawn, and my parents were just the butt of that for me, and we just could not have a conversation with each other. We just couldn't. So mediation, being prepared to open up to the community for help, and community members also to look out for people that may be in these situations, like teachers, parents, kids coming in that may not be, dirty clothes, needing shoes, food, those kinds of basic things all can contribute to a later issue of substance abuse and mental health disorders, like all of those kinds of factors, malnourishment, lack of access to healthy relationships, single parents that are struggling, low income levels, all of this affects it. There's so many things. I think we have to look, I personally would love to see a community where we are open to helping each other and bringing, these, like you said, take the shame away from saying, hey, I need help with my kid, and not feeling embarrassed about that, because our children coming up in this epidemic, they're going to feel the repercussions. We're not going to see those repercussions for a long time. Like as far as like physical health, mental health, we don't know what this is going to look like.
Right.
I just want to go back. Can you speak to the child that says, I'm different. I know I'm different. Other kids know I'm different. They're bullying me. And how would you say to them, speak up?
It's so hard. Kids' capacity to understand that this is not a forever thing. They just don't, their brains can't process that. When they're going through these experiences, they feel like this is forever. This is my world, and this hurts so bad and can't see beyond it. And I felt that way as a kid. I felt that way as a teenager. Hell, in my early 20s too. I was like, nothing's changing. But that it's so hard to impress upon a kid that this is not going to last forever. Keep talking to me. Keep, just opening up and sharing, giving them a vocabulary, letting them understand different ways to express themselves. Like that's where therapy, I think, can be very useful. And I think therapy just helps us offer a language that people can express themselves with.
But I also think, I'm sorry, the teacher, if there's a teacher that sees this, and the child needs someone that they can go to, they can trust. So I feel like adults, we need to be a little more aware of children and where they are, and they are different, and reaching out to them and developing that relationship to say, you can talk to me.
Absolutely. And it's hard. Kids are hard because kids, they're kids, so you can only talk to them about certain things as not, like a guardian or something. You know what I mean? If you're not a guardian of that child, it can... people can get really upset for you to come at them and be like, talk to me, you know what I mean? Or you can talk to me. Parents don't understand. Like, we're not as open and we feel judged as parents. I know I get the mom guilt, the mom shame all the time, like, I'm not doing this right. Everybody's doing this. And we feel judged when people are like, can we support you? But that's a shift in perspective and change that I think all of us, that this isn't judgment. This is like, if we can support each other as a community, we can do so much better for our kids.
Patti, this is a major part of this conversation. Marty, I'd like to advance your question. Patti, what I think I'm sensing from what you're saying is there's not a one conversation, quick turnaround solution to this. We on the outside must be very persistent. That's one attribute, it seems, but in a very effective way through a meaningful, genuine relationship. That is, don't judge me if I have a propensity to do something, rather just work with me.
And where I am too, often you're going to find like, you're not going to be able to sell somebody on just stopping using. How about lessen your use? This is called harm reduction. It's kind of controversial in some ways because it's not saying stop everything. It's saying slow down. And if you can maintain that slow down, how did you get to that point where, what helped you slow down? Can we capitalize on that and get it to be a stop situation where you eventually at some point stop using? But that's just, that's a tough sell. But it's an easy way to get somebody to trust you.
And I appreciate everything you're saying. Now, I'm going to ask you just one more question regarding the past. Now that you have been through and you are recovering, looking back, did you, in hindsight, have to almost experience what you did? Or is there anything about what we're talking about that could have prevented you from ever taking that first drug? I'm asking this question in the context that there are some who said, I was just bullheaded that I had to go through what I had to go through. It's unfortunate, but I'm now on the recovering side. Is there any general trend such as that? Or?
Hard to say. I feel like I probably would have bulldozed my way down that path at some point, thankfully a little bit earlier than later. Maybe with mental health, because again, for me, I put such a high emphasis on that and mental health and hygiene and learning to express yourself, again, be given the language to express yourself and communicate. Communication is the key for a lot of things, because if you open your mouth, you may not feel so alone. And very much the opposite of addiction is connection to something else.
Well, for us, that is just huge. The connection. Be willing to accept me, communicate with me, help me through this. My experience is those who are on the other side may not be able to verbalize what's happening in me, what's going on with me, but if you have any ability to understand and work with me, you might just be a very positive influence on them.
Absolutely. And I'd like to also see a big push for more help for the families of individuals that are suffering with substance abuse and mental health disorders, because they call it a family disease for a reason. It impacts everybody, not only that person that's suffering, but the mental health and the even though just your mood for the family members surrounding these people. Like, I can't give my parents back the peace that they lost. All those nights wandering, where I was I going to come home alive? All of that kind of stuff. I mean, they went through that. And I can't give that to them back, that sense of peace that they have lost. But for parents and family members to know how to talk to somebody suffering, but also how to keep themselves safe. Because, unfortunately, people are going to die from this disease every single day. And the parents and families, left after this are going to be and will forever carry the brunt of that. So getting them help that they need so they can, enable their own happiness and healthiness. And that carries on. That has you absorb that by osmosis.
Right.
You see it becomes part of you.
Patti, you mentioned earlier in the conversation that you're 5 years in recovery. Is that you've been clean for 5 years? Is that?
Yep, I've been in recovery for 5 years. I was on methadone, which is a form of medication-assisted treatment, depending on who you talk to. Some may say that that's not in recovery. Some may say that it is. I full well say that it is. I was on methadone for 4.5 years. I've been off of it for this Christmas will make 3 years that I've been off of it. And I went through that process because for me that's what I needed. And I decided to taper off of that medication. It took me about 1.5 years, and I came all the way off of methadone and have been without any opiates or medication-assisted treatment. So.
Well, congratulations for the mindset that I suspect you had to have, Patti, and the willingness to want to overcome. And for those that surrounded you with the positive influence, thank you. And you've got a very, very inspiring story.
Thank you.
So now, are you recovered, or would you say you'll spend the rest of your life recovering?
I think everybody's recovering constantly, consistently. I am not ever going to say I am recovered because I'm always growing and changing. Now, maybe substance abuse isn't what is the most pressing danger for me at the moment, but all those behaviors that help me overcome that, making sure that those are consistent and on board. I've got to make sure that I keep a good schedule, because I know when I don't have a good schedule, I start to backslide. So it's just like a constant monitoring process, self-check-in, which I think not only people in recovery do, but good, productive folks do. You're always kind of checking and improving. So.
Okay, now, do you have, if not a formal support group, do you have, let's just say, a group of friends that you would call very definitely up-leveling you in the context of a support group?
Absolutely. And that was actually probably the toughest thing for me to break into, was finding my group of friends, making a little space in this world for myself, and feeling that I had something to offer other people that was worthwhile. So surrounding myself with people, I was so scared. I had so much anxiety and I was so self-conscious. I didn't know how to interact, and I felt so just out of sorts, but I kept pressing, and I got to meet some of the most amazing people. I mean, they're great. We get to talk about houses and vacations, and we do stuff with our kids. And I was intimidated by them, is what I think I was really going on there. I looked at what they had, and I was like, I don't have that. What can I give these folks? But I learned to kind of get what they had. I don't know. My friends are amazing.
Patti, I think one of the things I'm learning from what we are learning from this is there is an aspect of self-image, self-esteem, self-acceptance. All of this is something that you had to build almost from the bottom up. And I'm going to correlate all that to say, Patti, you now have what I want to ask you. Do you have what you believe now to be a healthy self-worth?
I think it is. I would say it is. It's very much healthy, because I can walk into a situation and be like, man, I don't know how this is going to go, but it's going to go. So we're going to do it.
And Patti, I think we're learning that there are a lot of people who just, again, not sure where I fit into the world. I got a low self-esteem, low self-confidence, a lot of these things. And we're not going to turn that around in one conversation. It's going to take maybe several years to help build that up
Yep.
to being very healthy. But I think it's a commitment that
It
we
is.
make to each other,
Yep.
if we can use the term, and you did earlier, that it's a community effort.
It is. And I mean, also just to remember that just because somebody is, in treatment doesn't mean that they're not going to backslide into old behaviors. Those behaviors were learned over time, reinforced with substances and other things. And they're a bear. You do really good and then you backslide. You have really bad days. That's fine. Totally fine.
And let me just close out with the time remaining that we have, Patti.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that being labeled a substance abuser would be a terrible thing to do. In other words, you're recovering.
Mm-hmm.
To label you as, in the context of being an outcast,
Mm-hmm.
because you were a substance abuser. I'm guessing we on the outside need to make sure that we stay away from that type of labeling. Can you address that?
Absolutely. That's the whole issue of stigma. And it can go on for forever about that, even in the hiring process and things. I mean, once you're labeled with that, it kind of carries a stain with it. Some people in recovery label themselves as addicts. They will introduce themselves as, in self-help and support groups. I don't do that. For me, it's personally because I felt, for me personally, it gave me permission. Mm-hmm. So to label myself as an addict says I can, if I do this, it's fine because I'm just an addict. That's how my brain worked. And I understood that about myself. So, ask the person. The best way to know is just ask. If you have any questions, most people, I think, if you approach them on a level like, hey, I just want to understand, will tell you where they stand.
Well, Patti, again, thank you for being on the recovery side, and then thank you for reaching out to others that you are passing forward your experience to others. Mm-hmm. And this type of experience, Patti, for all of us that are listening to this, and those who feel who are privileged to be able to associate with you, we're going to learn a lot. And Marty's and my hope is that we can come together as a community. Mm-hmm. and support each other, come and add value to each other, that we've all been through stuff, but let's just work together with this.
It's incumbent upon us to do so. I think that's just, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, or anything that we're talking about in general, I think when we're talking about these things, we're talking about like humanity as a whole. So
it's exactly what it is. Patti?
I want to say I just really appreciate, and I hope the audience got this, that you at one time felt like, I have nothing to offer anybody. Yeah. But you overcame that, and you realize now how much you do have to offer. And when someone feels like they know that they have something with an offer, they can help someone else, that just builds their confidence and the help. We all want to help someone. So I appreciate that you are doing that.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
Patti, thank you for taking the time to share your story with us. That this is just a huge inspiration to many of us, and we're hoping that this can have a lot of meaning, and it will, to our audience that maybe has a low self-esteem and they're not sure where they fit.
Yeah.
And we're working this. We are in this together.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, Patti. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
We hope we're adding value to everyone who listens to the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series. Our purpose is to add value to everyone, to let people know that they are not alone in any life struggle they're facing, and knowing how others have overcome various life topics, to know and learn from how to overcome those topics, to where each of us who listen to these folks can learn to live a life of significance. Thanks to Patti in her dedication to helping those recover from substance abuse. Patti works for the Calvert County Substance Abuse Department, and she is helping many folks recover from substance abuse. Our purpose in this series is to be able to hopefully identify some of the characteristics of people before they become involved in drug abuse, to help them through any let's say, low self-esteem, anything that may attribute to low self-worth. Marty and I have put together a digital relationship course, and Patti emphasized the importance of relationships and just taking the time to engage with other people to show that, quite honestly, we care. One of the attributes of those who are engaged in or have been engaged in substance abuse, but it's not restricted to them, is a low self-image, low self-worth. In other words, can you just accept me? And that's a large part of people's life. And as we take the time to develop meaningful relationships, we too can have many meaning to people's lives. As was mentioned in the series, there's no quick solution to many of the challenges that people face that get them started into drug abuse. But if studying further relationships is of interest to you, and we hope it is, please review our website, thecooperculture.com, and we have available a digital course that takes you through the beginning of relationships. It does focus on dating relationships. We will develop a second series that is focused on work relationships. But the relationships that we focus on have to do with learning people, who they are. Everyone is very unique. However, we are learning that we are predictably unique. Once we determine our personality and we choose to accept others, we can develop a very meaningful relationship. If you're getting benefit from these podcasts, we hope you are. I hope you'll give us a 5-star rating, and we look forward to seeing you on our next Overcoming podcast series, where we speak with a person who has overcome various life topics. We hope you have a great day.